I want us to spend a few minutes thinking about how we actually detect whether or not we're clicking on a rectangular button. Okay, so there is a link online to a program, and I'll put it in the description, that you can go on and actually play around and do this in real time. But I want you to kind of get an understanding of how it works from a more static point of view as well. So I want you to imagine we've got this button, and this is our submit button. And we have some code, and effectively what we have is, if we click the mouse, yep, then we want to do something. But what we're first checking is, if we pressed on the button, then take some action. So it's this bit here that we're interested in, if we pressed on the button. So we have, if we can label our rectangle, which is our target area, we can label that we have an X and a Y position, it has a width, and it has a height. Yeah, it just has all the attributes of a rectangle. Now, I've got my mouse pointer, and I need 4 things to be true. In order for me to be sure that my mouse pointer is inside that rectangle, that submit rectangle, I want my mouse X to be greater than the X position. And by X position, I mean this one here. The X position is the X position of the rectangle or the button. Okay, so my mouse X position has to be bigger than that. But that could mean that my mouse is over here. Right, so I could have my mouse really far past that, way past the width, and it would still be true. So what I can do is I can get rid of that, and I can add an additional check. So I want my mouse X to be greater than the X position. In addition to that, I want my mouse X to be less than X plus width. So let's imagine that X is 200. I'm going to redo that with a more sensible. So X is 200, Y is 400, my width is 150, and my height is 50. So what is X? So my mouse is going to be greater than 200. I want my mouse to be less than 200 plus 150. So less than 350. So I've now got a 150 pixel window, which is this width here. And that means that I'm on the correct X position. So I can repeat this process for the Y coordinates. I can say, I know I definitely want to be past the top of the button. So I want my mouse Y position to be greater than the Y position of the button. And the Y position of the button in this case is 400. Again, I could be in a position where my mouse is away down here past the button and I would still meet that criteria. So I need to have some limit on the other side of the button. And that limit is going to be here. We're just going to draw it around this so that we can see that they're all related. And this one is going to be mouse Y is what? It's going to be less than the Y of the button plus the height of the button. So in real money, in pixels, that means it's going to be 400 pixels plus 50 pixels for the height. So that's 450. So I now have 4 conditions that need to be met. And if those 4 conditions are met, then I've definitely pressed on the button. So remember that we need to have some indication for my if statement, that I need to have plus or and. I need to make sure that all of them are true. And I need to make sure that I use the correct less than or more than. So this if button pressed thing, in reality, actually looks like this. It looks like if mouse X is greater than the X position of my button. And, so note here that I've got two ands, or two ampersand symbols, so that means and. So mouse X is greater than X, and mouse X is less than X plus width. And mouse Y is greater than the Y position of the button, and mouse Y is less than Y plus the height. If all of that is true, then I can do something here. So things to watch out for. It's fine to move things onto a new line as long as you don't have something that kind of ends the line at this point. All of this entire thing will be treated as one, because the thing that the computer is looking for is it is looking for this open bracket on the left, and it's looking for this closed bracket on the right at the end. Be careful of the less than or more than. If it helps, draw that kind of box that we have in the bigger picture there and just copy the values. Always try and create an X, Y, width and height variable for your button. Now you might have multiple buttons, so you might end up with something that looks a bit like, you might have one that is, this is a blue button, so you have X and Y for the blue, and then you have a red button, so you have X red, Y red. This YB and YR, these are going to replace your X and Y positions for the button, right? So just kind of being cognizant that you might have multiple buttons that you're trying to hit. And then making sure that your curly brackets are obviously there so that you can run the if statement. What you might have is you might have if mouse pressed, then if I clicked on this button, do something. If I clicked on that button, do something. And if I clicked on the other button, do something. So that situation where you've created a red, green, blue button that I can change color or something. So that is hopefully a bit of an overview of how buttons work, or how rectangular buttons work, and then you can get a sense of how you might replicate that in your own program.